Hello, beautiful people. Episode 35. Moving along quite nicely. I actually remembered that. You all should be proud of me. It's been a long time since we caught up one on one. I had a couple guests lined up, but you know how that goes. I had a flake. I had someone flake, go no call, no show, but it happens. And I actually did an episode with Harrison, which you didn't send to me, but I did an episode with Harrison. I was gonna throw up on for this episode. I was gonna save it. I was gonna keep it on the shelf until like Christmas or something. But it'll work. It'll work itself out. Anyway, some crazy shit happened to me today. It was very interesting. I'm just coming off episode 34 with. Did I fuck the episode up? Now I made myself forget. But I'm just coming off episode 34. My man Chris Williams of the Can You Relate podcast, and we were just talking about how things are going in Chicago, and he said shit's still fucked up. So, I mean, if you didn't hear it, go back and listen to the episode. We obviously said more than shit's fucked up, but you know how I get. In order for me to not turn it into a long story, I gotta just move on, cause I could go. Trust me. Anyway, for the new listeners. Anyway, so he said shit's fucked up. We talked about maybe solutions, what we can do, where we can go. And this morning, I happened to be watching CNN. And they were talking about, Trump was in Pensacola. They were talking about his speech and the things he said. And, he got the crowd riled up. And Trump is really depressing. That's why I'm trying to talk about it. So I'm just going over the story. I'm just, summing up shit and just moving along because, yeah. I don't want to. I could go. It's politics, and we all know shit's fucked up. Like in Chicago, we know what's going on with our presidency and all this other shit. So that's why I try to keep it fun on the podcast. But I gotta just tell the story. So anyway, Trump's he's doing what he does, and then he mentions Chicago. He says, "And what's going on in Chicago? Weak politicians and all this other shit." And he does what he just said. Like, he was basically saying Chicago's still a mess, what's going on, but in his Trump kind of way. So they go back to Don Lemon. They zoom to him, and he says, well, he has his panel of four. And he's like, well, Trump says things are still messed up in Chicago, but here we have the stats, and homicide's actually down 14%. Bro, I looked at that. And I was like, whoa, hold on now. I was just like, are we just going through everything to go against Trump? Or what's going on here? Like, that shit really confused me. Because I'm watching this and them saying like, oh, things are getting better. I'm like, don't do that. I just spoke to someone in Chicago and they say shit's fucked up. The people I know in Chicago, they don't have any good news for me. Like, they say people are trying, and that's good. And it's one of the actually happened to I never vote for these fucking things, but I happened to see one of the CNN heroes, and it was a cop from Chicago, a black lady, and she tries to do a lot of neighborhood outreach, and she's going to community centers, and I think she has like not a daycare, but like a day center, I think, for kids, and she does a lot to be in touch with the community. And I was like, see, that's what we should be focusing on. But let's not just focus on this and forget that people are still dying. So when I saw that, I felt a little better about it. Like, I felt like, okay, they get it. But then I see them doing this shit. We're like, oh, the numbers are down. And I'm like, see, that's what happens when we fall into the stats. Like, we can't ever fall into the stats like that. That's fucked up. For real. You can't just to go against and make Trump look like the liar he is, which I get it, but you can't nitpick everything and forget that there's still people dying. So when I saw that, it was a fucked up moment. I was like, ugh. I was like, what is going on in this world? And the crazy shit is, what I also wanted to talk about on the podcast is like, why I used to, I don't know about to the kids that listen, because my podcast, I was looking at the demographics, like 29% of the listeners are 18 through 24. So like 18-year-olds may not know that Trump was once cool. It was once cool to say Trump was cool. You know, 'cause he was, is he this fucking stupid? But he was the first reality TV star. So, you know, like, I hoped, I can't speak for anyone else, but I hoped that at the end of his fucking stupid rants, but this is before like 2012 when I realized he was an idiot. For real. Or maybe I just became a man and realized, I don't know where it was, but maybe I just became a man and realized what he was. But as like a kid, I remember him just being like, not a goofball, but like, I thought he was like an actor. To me, Trump was like, Trump and Arnold Schwarzenegger were even to me. Like, I don't even know. I'm like, wait, Trump is just not in movies. He was in Home Alone, but Trump is just, I don't know. He's just a guy. And I hope that when he went back to the Trump Tower, his penthouse, and he sat down and he was like, you know, he made a joke to whoever he was with, like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe people fall for this shit. Like, I hoped it was an act. But now, like, I'm looking at him as the president of these here United States, and I was just like, this guy I don't know. He don't represent me, bro. Like, he doesn't speak for me. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. You know, and I also found it interesting. I was talking to one of my friends who's a Trump supporter. And, you know, and when I first found out he was a Trump supporter, he said it to me this year. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm, you know, a quiet Trump supporter. And I was like, what are you quiet about? Like, what is there to yell about? And he actually liked that I didn't just write him off. But you know me. It's really me on and off this fucking microphone. I will ask you a question. I have to ask you the question. I can't walk away from you. Like, if you just come out randomly and be like, yeah, you know, I'm a Trump supporter, I got to ask you why. I can't just be like, oh, cool. Or I'll be like, oh, you're an asshole and walk away. No. I have to ask why. I have to know. So with this, so when he first said it, I was like, what is there to celebrate about? He's like, you know, my brothers are cops, and that's why this kneeling for the anthem thing, like, they're out there, they're cops. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He was like, the kneeling for the anthem, like, you know, I never was in the, and he just started going, and he was like rambling, and he wasn't connecting the dots, he wasn't answering my question. I'm like, listen, you know, when you talk about he's against kneeling for the anthem, like, what are you against? Do you know what kneeling for the anthem is? You know, he didn't even want to go down that road. So I just like accepted it for what it was. So anyway, that was like our first encounter where I'm like, oh, it's something you're not telling me. Like, I don't know if you just support the hate or you're miserable in your regular life. And I wasn't to judge him, but when you can't explain why you support something, like if I was just like, oh, Hillary should have won, and which either way I didn't give a fuck because I know the government's going to do what the fuck they want to do anyway. But so if I was saying Hillary should have won and someone said why, and I was like, because, you know, just because this guy can't, and I start talking about Donald Trump, then I don't have a case why I think Hillary should win. That's where and I know millions of Americans were at that same crossroad, but you got to still look at the facts, and you got to still look at what needs to, like what's really happening in front of your eyes, and just speak on it. So this past Sunday, I was talking to him, and he was like, we were at my football game and we smelled weed. So I was like, oh, somebody got too loud. He was like, hey, it's nothing wrong with that. And I was like, nah, yeah, I never said there was nothing wrong. He's like, yeah, I never tried it in my life, but it's nothing wrong with it. And then something clicked in my head. I was like, wait, you never tried weed? And he was like, nah, but my brother got it. And he starts telling me this story about how his brother had cancer and he uses it to cope with pain. And I was like, nah, that's absolutely, I hope your brother's well or getting well, but that's absolutely what it should be used for. But also, I'm like, people just want to smoke some weed. Like, you just want to have a drink. If drinking healed the fucking common cold, people would just still want to do it. So, but something clicked in my brain when I was like, oh, so you never tried it, but you're going to sit here and vouch for it just because it's what someone said to you. And then it clicked, like, oh, see, that's what I thought about you. That's why I don't even, like, that's why I'm like, some of this shit is not, you're not serious. You just going by what your peers and people are telling you to support, and you're just riding the wave. And I'm like, see, that is why this is all fucked up, And I'm like, even something stupid as weed. I'm like, you can't vouch to me and tell me why weed's okay if you never even tried it yourself. Like, I'm really looking at it, I was just like, I was like, all right, bro. Like, I ain't got time to convince you today, bro. You got to listen to the podcast or something, but that, like, where the world is right now, it's crazy. And even to move on to not even just talk about politics, because I'm not even gonna try to make a point out of all that shit. Like even with the NFL, Josh Gordon's back. I haven't watched, but I just saw a little. I saw a little. I haven't watched an NFL game all year, which is crazy. First time in 20 years. But I obviously see clips. Like you can't hide from fucking NFL highlights. I'm not gonna throw my phone across the room like no, like no, it's not that serious. But I feel like giving up the NFL is stating my point enough for me not to. This is already crazy. But so I saw Josh Gordon and he scored a touchdown. He did his dance. He threw on his shades and he was still swaggy. And I was like, I didn't see a whole game, so I don't know if he bodied it. But the 30-second clip I saw was like, damn, that's finesse. That boy still got it, and it wasn't an easy catch. And I started to think like, wow, he's been banned from the league for 3 years for smoking weed. They tried to, they had him in rehab and shit. Like, you got a problem, Josh. And granted, let me tell you, I'm not saying he's totally innocent, because if they told me, Bo, you got to give up weed for 3 years, or not give up weed for 3 years, but just give up weed for this $30 million NFL contract, no problem. Done. Shit, I'll give up a lot of shit. You don't want me to drink fucking Coronas either? I won't do that. No problem. So I looked at Josh Gordon like, this fucking idiot. You got caught again, bro? Just don't smoke. So then I got the whole rehab thing. Like, okay, maybe he really might be addicted. Like, maybe he really might just want to smoke weed or need to smoke weed. But then I started thinking, like, it just don't always have to be for cancer or something. Like, some motherfucker could be depressed or someone could be sad and they smoke a little sativa and they start feeling like, wow, the day just got better. Like even with Alexa, when she talked about having PTSD on episode 32, we like her too. When she talked about having PTSD and depression, if she was able to smoke weed in the morning and really bring herself out of that funk and bring herself into a light to make her happy and feel better about her day, if weed helped that, I feel like smoke. So it doesn't always have to be something, some disease or not. It was like physical disease, or like it doesn't always have to be that. Sometimes it could be for your mental, and maybe Josh Gordon needs a little weed to focus in, or maybe if you just like to do it. I don't know. Like people have wine. These guys that are so against weed in the NFL go home and drink Johnny Walker Blue Label. They have some scotch. So I'm like, we all have our vices, so we gotta lighten up, and we gotta stop just going by we don't like things because of what other people say. Like Jeff Sessions, our Attorney General, he says no good people smoke marijuana, and I'm like, Jeff Sessions, that's just not true. You gotta lighten up. I don't wanna have to contact a weed dealer. I wanna go right down to Walgreens and get myself some weed, get myself some marijuana. But for real, man. I didn't even want to drag out though. I didn't even want to drag out this whole podcast. I just wanted to get that off, and that was too much for me to tweet. But that's how I'm feeling today. And I was gonna have a guest on. They didn't show up, and I'm like, yo, listen, I still gotta talk my shit with or without you. I'm still gonna. But yeah, it was something. Oh yeah, I wanted to touch on a point that I made on episode 34 on the Can You Relate podcast. Also, a couple people were asking me about. They were like, when I talked about like finding, not see I guess I didn't go into enough detail on that when I should have. That they were talking about when I was like, how do you like when I watch every Charlemagne or some shit. I didn't mean that I want to go be Charlemagne on my podcast. I didn't mean that, but I meant like. The views he expressed, like sometimes when you listen to people you look up to, they make a good enough point. It does stray your opinion, but not like I was just talking about with the guy with the Trump. I don't go and make that my concrete beliefs, and that's what I was. And I didn't mean it that way. I just meant like as far as information. So when you go and Google, when you go and look, when Yahoo suggests an article for you to read, and you read it. You're taking that writer's information. So I meant it like that. Like, how do I stop myself from just going to one source? Like, if I read only Gary Vaynerchuk books, I'm getting all of just Gary Vaynerchuk's information. But with myself, I'm like, all right, what things work for him that may not work for me? And that's what I mean with that crossroad. I don't mean I want to become that. I didn't mean that. So I wanted to clarify that. I mean, like, you got to listen to new people to grow. You got to listen to new ideas to grow. So listening to one person, if that's where you get it from, sure. But are you growing or are you becoming them? So I just meant that crossroad, and I wanted to clarify that for the people that I didn't, I'm not saying go emulate somebody's style. I have my own voice. I have my own podcast. What the fuck do I want to be somebody else for? I can come here and tell my personal stories. I don't need to tell you like, well, this happened. I don't care about keeping up with the Charlemagnes. I just mean like I do. Well, as far as off the field, but as far as like Oprah, I would do everything Oprah did. I don't want to be Oprah though. You know what I mean? Like I listen to the Super Soul podcast, her podcast, and I actually, it's gonna sound crazy, but like I like the way I do things more. I'm like, yeah, if I was Oprah, I would do things this way. So and who am I to say that? But that's what I mean. So I don't let anybody else define my voice. To sum that up. Also, someone mentioned that I said I gave money to a homeless woman, and they remembered what I talked about. I think on episode 1, the original episode. They were like, "I thought you said you're not supposed to," and I'm like, "Nah, bro, don't have Twitter fingers right now." I wasn't bragging about giving $4 to a homeless woman. Like he said like because on episode 1, I was talking about like all these internet people that want to take pictures of them giving money to homeless people. And I thought that was bullshit, and I still think it's bullshit. And I'm like, no, bro, you didn't see me giving out plates. I was like, I just happened to mention it because I don't even want to look at a homeless woman who's begging for change like she's beneath me. Maybe she has maybe it's a reason behind like that person. Maybe she wants to be that. Maybe she just lives better off the land and begging for money. So I don't ever, if she says hello to me, I would never not say hello back. I'd say hello. How are you? Or have a nice day, or whatever. I would never feel like, oh, you can't talk to me. So I was just telling the story to say the opposite of that. So also I think people also fucking interpret what they want to interpret, but it just wasn't sitting well with me. I'm like, look, I don't know how many people feel that way. I couldn't live with that. But so I had to clarify that, with the statement with that, and which I should have mentioned on the podcast was. I heard Steve Stout, and this is when I do like to, that's why I got to listen to these guys, and that's why I say I like to hear their stories, because they help me explain my stories. I heard Steve Stout say that KRS-One was doing the beat to the Bridge Is Over on a wall in a homeless shelter. And the guy who was working in the homeless shelter heard him and was like, yo, we got to record this. The guy who said that was Scott LaRock. I'm like, whoa, they met? Because KRS-One was doing the beat on the wall, and he recognized, like, ooh, what is that? That's some fire. And that's how they linked up. I was like, wow. And when I heard that, and I was actually thinking about it when I was telling the story, but I didn't want to go off on one of my tangents. I mean, I always want to go off on a tangent, but sometimes I just try not to be selfish and move on for the show. But so I was trying not to do that. I just brushed over, and I forgot to bring it back up and tell that story. But that story is why I will... No, I don't feel like, I don't give a fuck who it is. A 4-year-old could wave at me in Target, like, hello, and I'll be like, hi. Like, I'm just that kind of guy. Like, I wouldn't be like, fucking kids. Like, I think you got to be open to life. You got to embrace life, and that's what builds true happiness, and I want that for everybody. And, and that was the original reason. This podcast is just my gift to you. My way of we don't always text the people we love. We don't always call the people we love. I don't know. We're in 2017 and everyone's just swamped with just life. But this way, you will always have a way to contact me. You'll always have a way for me to reach out to me. And that's every Monday. I'll be in the iTunes store. Go to kingbochrist.com. You'll find it. SoundCloud's there. Podbean's there. Big shout out to that boy Ray Ross, my lowly subscriber on Podbean. But yeah, I'll be here for you, because you know what? All we got in this world is each other and people spreading a positive message. All we got in this world is people that can look at each other and agree on something and want to laugh and want to smile and want to have a good time and want to go and put our head down and work and do what we do and enjoy. I do this podcast for you guys. You guys help me out. Just getting some shit off my chest. Like, I come here and talk to myself for fucking 20 minutes. It's a little bit of the weird shit about my life, and I'm going to give you a little bit of insight of what happens with me. When I put this out, I feel like I'm talking to myself, right? Boom. It's like the never-ending voicemail or something. And then when the person gets back to you, they're up to speed, and you guys hit the ground running. So when you guys start hitting me on Twitter, I'm like, oh, when you said we're talking about the Trump supporter, you boom, 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 and we move on. We have a conversation, and they're like, oh, wow. Or when someone's listening that they mentioned, I gotta start remembering people's fucking @name, but I just get so many notifications. It's hard to, and moving on in a day, I gotta just keep moving. But I gotta start writing those down. But anyway, when someone says, thanks for clarifying the statements on the homeless woman, that's crazy about KRS-One, Scott LaRock, and then we move on and we build communication. And that's the key to just not being a sourpuss all the time. Just have communication with people. Maybe when someone says some foul shit to you, you're like, maybe you didn't mean it like that. And you can ask a question. Like, hey, what did you mean by that? And maybe, when the guy said, my brothers are cops, so these guys kneeling for the anthem is fucked up. And I'm like, nah, bro, it wasn't for that. And I give him a little bit of backstory. I don't know if it changes his mind, but it opens a door for him. He knows me. And if he knows, like, if I was in the league, I would kneel for the anthem, he knows I'm not a bad guy. So that opens the door for him, like, huh. And hopefully it makes him think. And that's what we all have to contribute to. We all have to make each other think with positive things or in a positive direction. Don't make each other think to cast a dark cloud, I love you all, man. I appreciate you listening. Make sure you download and subscribe. I don't know how iTunes with the podcast app is doing, but I would appreciate it if you just make sure you hit that download button, so I know what's going on for my numbers. We just so to keep you up to date with that. I don't like talking about it because I don't want, like, at a certain point, like, at a certain point when people start making money, like poor niggas start making money and they start putting it on Instagram, like, I don't want to be that. So I hate talking about the numbers, but I just tell you because I, like, legit think it's cool. Sometimes I wish it wasn't me. And I could tell you if it was a rapper, you wouldn't take it the wrong way. But we just got up to 45,000 listeners. I thought that was crazy. So big shout out to all 45,000 of you. I'm like, I can't believe I would fill up MSG. This is some shit. One day we'll do it. And Matt from Vancouver, I ain't forget about you. Canada, you're on the check-in on my podcast tour. But I've rambled on long enough. I want to appreciate all of you for listening. I want you to know I appreciate you for listening, especially all those up in Canada. I still can't believe this many people care about what the fuck I have to say, but I understand why, because, I'm a genius. I want you all to have a day you deserve. I love you. I'm out.